How do you survive in conditions of perpetual cold when there is a biting wind outside, stone and ice all around, and all you have at your disposal is an armful of damp firewood and walls made of thick northern turf? For most people, this sounds like a death sentence, but for the Vikings, it was everyday reality. They were not just fierce warriors and sailors, but also brilliant engineers of their time, who learned not to fight against the harsh nature, but to subdue it. In their longhouses, an open fire was not just a source of heat or a way to cook food. It served as a complex life support system. It heated the space, dried clothes and weapons, preserved food, and sustained life itself in conditions where a mistake could cost the entire settlement its existence. This system worked without metal, pipes, or technology as we know it, and it functioned flawlessly for centuries. Watch the video to the end to find out how a single spark could sustain the life of an entire settlement, why the fire could never be allowed to go out, and at what cost the Vikings enjoyed the comfort of their legendary halls, which today seem romantic, but were then a matter of survival. First, I will reveal a secret that will change your entire perception of the daily life of Northerners. In a longhouse, there were no rooms as we understand them today. The entire interior space was organized around a single central line that dictated the rules of life. This line was an open hearth that stretched across the entire huge hall and warmed everyone present. This layout was dictated by the harsh necessity of strict resource conservation in a cold climate. The Scandinavian summer is too short, and the winters seem endlessly long, dark, and extremely dangerous to life. The heat from the central hearth had to be distributed as efficiently as possible throughout the entire wooden building. The stones around the fire acted as powerful heat accumulators, giving off the stored heat even in the middle of the night. The daily life of a large family with many children and loyal companions literally revolved around this fire. Here, clothes wet from the sea were dried, and fishing nets were repaired after successful hunting trips. The smoke from the fire slowly rose to the ceiling, creating a dense and very important protective layer of air. This helped to effectively combat excess moisture and harmful insects in the massive roof. The Vikings lived in a constant cloud of smoke, accustoming their lungs to this atmosphere from childhood. The sacred status of the hearth fire was confirmed by ancient beliefs, complex rituals, and customs of the Northerners. Each hearth had its own hidden soul and a special invisible guardian of domestic comfort. The flames were always tended with great reverence, never allowing strangers to approach the sacred coals. It was the main place of power, where leaders made important decisions that affected the fate of the entire clan. The construction of the house from peat and heavy stone reliably retained heat inside the living quarters. The walls acted as a shell of a huge natural thermos, preserving the precious energy of the open flame. Air circulated slowly through the hall, passing through doorways and small ventilation holes. The hearth was not just an ordinary stove, but a complex climatic device for controlling the entire environment. It maintained the desired temperature inside the huge wooden structure around the clock, and without interruption. The foundation stones were heated so much that the earthen floor remained warm even during the worst blizzards. This allowed people to walk comfortably inside the house without heavy and rough winter shoes. The Vikings understood the laws of physics on an intuitive and deeply practical level for their time. They skillfully directed air currents so that the central flame always burned evenly and brightly. The location of the hearth in the center ensured equal access to heat for all residents and guests. Not even the farthest corner of the house remained completely frozen during the winter months. Over time, the wooden beams of the high ceiling became impregnated with resin and wood tar from the constant smoke. This made the entire roof structure virtually eternal and reliably protected from any rot. Smoke acted as a natural and very effective preservative for the entire wooden structure. People valued this unique property of fire no less than the heat and light itself. Even during the strongest blizzards, a stable and peaceful atmosphere was always maintained inside the house. The outside world with its bitter cold seemed distant, alien, and completely unimportant to the inhabitants of the house. Fire created a reliable protective barrier between humans and the hostile, icy nature of the north. Every member of the large community felt completely safe near their family hearth. Do you think modern people could survive even a day in such a specific environment? Share your opinion in the comments below this video. Your feedback is very important to us. And be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new, amazing discoveries about the life of sailors. Want to know the main secret of how the Vikings prepared their legendary and abundant feasts? The cooking process was inextricably linked to the constant and intense heating of the main hall. A huge cauldron always hung over the same fire that warmed everyone present. Massive iron or very sturdy wooden tripods for cookware were installed over the long hearth. Heavy cast iron or bronze cauldrons with food constantly swayed above the flames on reliable chains. This well-thought-out system made it easy to adjust the temperature of any dish in real time. The hostess simply raised or lowered the container higher or lower relative to the hot flames. It was a simple but incredibly effective kitchen technique for a large family. Most of the daily diet consisted of thick and nutritious soups made from fresh meat or fish. Wild herbs, roots, and forest vegetables gathered in the nearest forest were always added to them. The dishes simmered in cauldrons for hours, gradually absorbing the aromas of the fire and northern spices. Slow cooking made even the toughest and hardest meat very tender and tasty. While the food was slowly cooking, the rising steam noticeably humidified the dry air in the hall. This was extremely beneficial for the lungs and skin in the smoky atmosphere of the longhouse. The Vikings skillfully used different temperature zones of a single long hearth for different culinary purposes. In the very center, there was always enough heat to quickly boil water or fry food. At the edges of the hearth, flat heated stones were placed in specific locations for continuous baking. Every day, flatbread was baked on them from barley flour or hand-picked coarse grain. The dough quickly absorbed the smell of smoke, acquiring a unique taste and a very pleasant aroma. This was the staple bread that reliably fed the harsh warriors and simple peasants. Cooking in such an open format was always a collective and very important activity. While the women carefully watched the cauldron, the men were always somewhere nearby. They loudly discussed plans for future campaigns or slowly repaired their combat equipment. In the Viking era, the kitchen was never separated from the common living space by unnecessary walls. The upper beams under the highest part of the roof were used for long-term smoking of food. The thickest, hottest, and most aromatic smoke from the central fire always rose there. Large fish and pieces of juicy meat were hung on special hooks under the ceiling. Thus, the hearth not only fed people today, but also provided them with supplies. The food in the smoke was saturated with natural antiseptics and gradually dried out, becoming hard. This allowed food supplies to be stored for long months without the use of any refrigeration. The smoking technology was absolutely vital for the long sea voyages of the northern warriors. The hearth was the foundation of food security for the entire settlement at any time of the year. The smell of rich, fresh cooking always mixed with the aroma of burning pine or fir needles. Each house had its own unique culinary flavor and unique home smell. Guests could easily determine the wealth of the host by the aroma coming from the main cauldron. Food was an important symbol of hospitality, prosperity, and physical strength for the entire clan. Guess how much time the hostess spent at the hearth every day to feed all the warriors? In the next chapter, you will learn how the Vikings turned ordinary benches into real heating batteries. You've definitely never heard of this unique heat exchange secret before. The Vikings developed a dual heating system for their massive, long northern homes. Wide earthen benches along all the walls played a crucial role in this. They were tightly packed with compacted soil, turf, and large river stones. This design made the benches very heavy and stable. They became part of the house itself, not just furniture. The earth and stone slowly absorbed heat from the hearth. Then they retained it for a long time, even after the fire began to die down. These elevations served as the main place for sleeping, resting, and long daytime sitting. They worked as additional powerful insulators from the outside, piercing winter cold. The benches reliably prevented the frost from the frozen ground from entering the main living area. This created an additional protective contour in the overall engineering design of the ancient house. The colder the winter, the more important this system became. People spent most of their time on the benches. Here they ate, talked, and did manual work. The warmth under their bodies significantly reduced the body's energy loss. Inside these massive benches, primitive channels were sometimes laid for air circulation. Warm air from the central hearth could slowly pass through these hidden cavities. It was not a full-fledged central heating system, but it helped to significantly warm the sleeping areas. The Vikings slept on soft skins spread directly on these heated platforms. Even a slight movement of warm air had a noticeable effect. The stones inside the benches gradually heated up and enhanced the result. This system did not require additional fuel. It used the heat that was already produced by the hearth. The massive walls made of layers of turf were often more than a meter thick at the base. This natural material had an enormous capacity to absorb and retain heat energy. The walls absorbed heat from the hearth during the day and slowly released it inside at night. Fire worked in perfect harmony with stone, wood, and earth. The turf also protected the house from wind and moisture. It froze on the outside but maintained a stable temperature inside. Thanks to this, sudden drops in temperature were hardly noticeable. The house seemed to have its own thermal life. Even the location of the house on the site was always chosen very carefully by the builders. They took into account the direction of the prevailing winds and the winter movement of the stingy northern sun. Entrance doors were always made small to maximize the retention of accumulated internal heat. The hearth was always located in the area with the best natural air circulation. Mistakes in choosing a location could cost the house its comfort. Strong winds would blow the heat out too quickly. Therefore, settlements were often located in natural shelters. Hills and slopes became part of the overall protection from the cold. Excess smoke escaped through a special adjustable opening in the ridge of the high roof. This opening could be covered depending on the current weather or wind strength. During heavy rain, it was closed with special wooden shutters on long poles. This maintained a delicate balance between the inflow of fresh air and the retention of heat. Completely closing the opening was dangerous because of the smoke. Leaving it too open led to heat loss. Therefore, it was constantly monitored. Smoke control was considered an important skill in every home. The combination of open flames and massive walls allowed people to survive even in icy Greenland. The Vikings created a completely closed and very reliable ecosystem inside their homes. They did not try to fight the cold, but skillfully and competently managed it. Each structural element of the house performed several critically important functions at once. The house became an extension of the surrounding nature. It used earth, stone, and fire as allies. This made the dwelling sustainable even in the harshest conditions. Simple solutions yielded remarkable results. The earthen floors in the center were also heated quite deeply, and for a long time, by the hearth. This created a warm floor effect in the part of the hall where people spent their time. Children could play safely on the ground without fear of catching a cold from the icy cold. The hearth created the necessary comfort for all generations living under one roof. The warm soil reduced the dampness inside the house. The air became drier and easier to breathe. This reduced the risk of illness in winter. Even such details affected the survival of the family. The Vikings actively used the properties of stones as natural portable heaters for their beds. Large, smooth cobblestones were heated in the fire and wrapped in pieces of thick woolen fabric. They were placed at the feet before bedtime during the harshest January frosts. This simple trick helped people survive the harshest polar nights. The stones slowly gave off heat for several hours. This allowed people to fall asleep without shivering from the cold. This method did not require constant maintenance of the fire. It was safe and very effective. Did you like this detailed description of ancient heating technologies from centuries ago? Like this video to support our great historical and research work. We continue to study the secrets of the great masters and warriors of the North together. What you are about to learn will change your perception of the ancient way of life of the Northerners. Controlling the fire in a longhouse was not just a job, but a real complex art. It required the constant attention of experienced people and a deep knowledge of the properties of different types of wood. Dry birch, pine, or spruce were used to quickly heat a cold hall. Fire in a longhouse was the center of all life and the basis of a family's survival. Without it, it was impossible to keep warm, cook food, or light the huge room. A mistake in handling the flames could cost people their homes and lives. Therefore, knowledge about fire was passed down from generation to generation from early childhood. These resinous woods produced a very high, bright, and incredibly hot flame. But to maintain a stable heat at night, completely different types of firewood were needed. Heavy oak or very dense layers of dried peat were used. They could smolder slowly and give off heat for many hours. This combination of fuels saved energy and resources. During the day, the house was quickly heated with light wood, and at night, the heat was retained by slow-burning materials. This was especially important in harsh winters, when the cold lasted for weeks. The right choice of fuel directly affected the health of the whole family. The lady of the house had to be a pro at putting out the fire the right way. At night, hot coals were carefully covered with a layer of ash so they wouldn't go out. In the morning, all you had to do was stir the ashes to instantly light a new fire. Losing the fire in a Viking home was always considered a very bad omen. The ability to keep the heat was considered a sign of an experienced and caring hostess. It determined whether people would be able to warm up quickly after a cold night. If the fire went out, the morning began with hard and tedious work. Therefore, the hearth was treated almost like a living being. Rekindling the flame with a flint and tinder was very time-consuming and difficult. The ashes from the hearth were also never wasted in the household. They were actively used for a variety of everyday needs of a large family. Ash was successfully used for high-quality tanning of hides and cleaning dishes. In addition, ash helped to keep the house clean. It was used to wash boilers and remove grease from surfaces. In conditions of limited resources, this was extremely important. Every part of the hearth found its use in the household. The hearth was completely waste-free and very profitable for all Vikings. The most important aspect of everyday life was always strict fire safety in wooden buildings. There was always free space around the fire, lined with large stones. This reliably protected the dry wooden parts of the house from any accidental sparks. The stones also accumulated heat and gradually released it into the room. This made the air more even and soft. People carefully monitored the condition of the hearth and the floor around it. Any cracks or crumbling stones were immediately repaired. The Vikings knew the true value of fire and always deeply respected its formidable power. They understood that their main savior could instantly turn into a vicious enemy. Order around the hearth was maintained by iron discipline on the part of all household members. No one dared to throw trash or gnawed bones into the sacred fire. This attitude shaped a special culture of behavior in the home. Children were taught from an early age how to handle fire properly. Violating the rules was perceived as a threat to the entire community. The hearth was not a place of disorder, but a symbol of order and protection. Each type of wood gave off its own special, unique type of heat and light. Experienced people knew exactly when to add fragrant coniferous branches. They gave off a pleasant aroma and quickly dispelled the excess autumn dampness. This was critically important after long and prolonged rains in Scandinavia. The smell of pine needles also created a feeling of comfort and calm. It helped people endure the dark and damp periods of the year more easily. Such small things had a strong influence on the general well-being of the family. Fire became a source not only of warmth, but also of comfort. The bright light from the fire was also the main tool for any manual work. In the evenings, people did the most delicate and complex carving by the light of the flames. Fire dictated the natural rhythm of life and the time for well-deserved rest. When the flames in the hearth died down, the whole big house fell asleep. With such lighting, every shadow had meaning. People learned to work carefully and with concentration. Fire replaced clocks and time signals. Its fading meant the end of the day for everyone without exception. In winter, preparing firewood became the main and honorable task for all men. Huge wood piles tightly surrounded the house, providing additional protection for the walls from the north wind. The wood had to be perfectly dry for the cleanest combustion. This minimized the amount of excess acrid smoke inside the living quarters. Supplies were carefully checked and replenished in advance. A shortage of firewood in winter could lead to illness and death. Therefore, firewood preparation was taken very seriously. It was the basis for survival in a cold climate. How often do you think fires occurred in such densely populated houses? In the next chapter, you will learn how people managed to survive in the darkness of the long night. Supplies were carefully checked and replenished in advance. A shortage of firewood in winter could lead to illness and death. Therefore, firewood preparation was taken very seriously. It was the basis for survival in a cold climate. How often do you think fires occurred in such densely populated houses? In the next chapter, you will learn how people managed to survive in the darkness of the long night. During the winter, the central hearth became the only available source of light. In the northern climate, this was crucial for survival. Without fire, the house would be plunged into complete darkness. Light was as important as heat. For months on end, the sun barely rose above the icy northern horizon. The days were short and dim. Sometimes it seemed as if the light would disappear altogether. People lived in constant anticipation of its return. A dim orange glow illuminated only the very center of the huge hall. The flames lit up faces and nearby objects. Everything else dissolved into darkness. The light was never uniform. All corners of the house always remained immersed in very thick and mysterious shadows. It was difficult to see anything there. These areas seemed cold and empty. People tried not to go there unnecessarily. This created a special, indescribable atmosphere during long and noisy feasts. The fire made what was happening almost theatrical. The light intensified emotions and impressions. Each feast was remembered for a long time. Important conversations were always held in hushed tones at the very edge of the warm fire. It was easier to concentrate there. The light allowed you to see the facial expressions and gestures of the person you were talking to. Such conversations were considered particularly significant. For additional lighting, people used small portable stone lamps. They were placed next to workplaces. The lamps could be carried around the house. This gave a little freedom. They were filled with melted seal fat and fitted with a simple wick. This fat was readily available and burned well. The wick was made of fibers or fabric. The design was extremely simple. However, these lamps produced only a very weak, unstable, and smoky flame. It often flickered and went out. The smoke stung the eyes and settled on the walls. It was difficult to use such light for a long time. The central hearth always remained the main source of light for all the inhabitants. It provided stable and lively light. Without it, the house lost its meaning. Everyone gravitated toward the fire. The smoke under the ceiling acted as one large reflective screen. It lingered under the roof. The light was reflected and scattered. This slightly increased the brightness of the hall. It effectively directed the light of the fire down onto all the work tables. People could see their hands better. This made work easier. Even the faintest light was used to its fullest. Over time, the walls of the house became covered with a thick, black layer of wood soot. This happened gradually. The layer became thicker and thicker. No one tried to remove it completely. This soot served as an additional antiseptic for the old and valuable wood of the walls. It protected the wood from insects and rot. This was a useful side effect. The house lasted longer. Living in constant semi-darkness shaped the Vikings' special mythical perception of the world. Their imaginations were particularly active. People saw more than was actually there. The darkness strengthened their belief in the invisible. The flickering shadows on the walls often seemed to people to be the living spirits of their ancestors. They moved with the flames. These images were both frightening and comforting. It was as if their ancestors were nearby. The Vikings spent long evenings listening intently to legends and heroic sagas. The stories sounded especially powerful by the fire. The light emphasized important moments. The words were easier to remember. The darkness beyond the circle of light was perceived by them as a hostile and dangerous void. Anything could be hiding there. Fire separated the safe space from the unknown. It gave a sense of protection. Are you ready for the shocking truth about the medical consequences of such a life? Living in a house without a proper chimney had very serious consequences. Constant inhalation of combustion products led to severe respiratory diseases. Studies of many ancient skeletons confirm the presence of soot particles in the bones. The eyes of the inhabitants suffered particularly badly from constant irritation from the smoke. They often watered and became severely inflamed under the influence of acrid gases. In order to survive, the Vikings tried to spend as much time as possible outdoors in the summer. But in winter, a smoky house remained their only chance of survival. Smoke also served a very important hygienic function in those harsh times. It effectively killed parasite larvae in thatched roofs and clothing. Without constant fumigation, the wooden structures of the building would have rotted very quickly. Regular disinfection was a useful side effect of the work of the hearth. The humidity from the constantly boiling pots of food softened the effects of the smoke. Vikings often threw fragrant and healing forest herbs into the fire. Juniper and fresh pine needles filled the room with a clean and pleasant smell. This noticeably helped people breathe easier in a closed space. The smoke also reliably repelled rodents that could spoil winter supplies. Rats and mice could not tolerate the smoky and hot atmosphere of the longhouse. The hearth protected not only the people themselves, but also all their property. It was a comprehensive and effective system for protecting the entire living environment. Viking children grew up strong despite such harsh conditions. Their young bodies quickly adapted to the excess carbon dioxide. However, overall life expectancy was lower precisely because of these factors. Warmth always cost ancient people part of their physical health. Scientists often find traces of anthracosis in the lungs of ancient Scandinavians. This is an occupational disease of all who live near open fires. The Vikings consciously accepted this risk as part of their normal way of life. Without fire, instant death would have come much faster. Ventilation was provided naturally through gaps in low doors, fresh, frosty air mixed with hot smoke under the roof. This created a certain gas balance in the main living area of the hall. People tried to stay below the smoke layer most of the time. During long sleep, Vikings often covered their faces with cloth. This helped filter the air they breathed and protected all their mucous membranes. Unique survival experience was accumulated over centuries and passed down from generation to generation. Every rule of harsh life was written at the cost of someone's health. Do you think such a high price for warmth was justified? In the next chapter, you will learn about the engineering architecture of the hearth. The construction of a hearth always began with choosing the most suitable and reliable location. People understood that fire would be the center of the home for many years to come. A mistake at this stage could make the dwelling uncomfortable and even dangerous. Therefore, the location for the hearth was chosen with particular care. This location permanently determined the entire layout of the future living space of the house. The location of the hearth determined where people would sleep, eat, and work. The entire inner life of the family was built around it. The house seemed to be adapted to the fire. The area for the fire was laid out only with the most massive and durable boulders. The stones were selected so that they could withstand constant, intense heat. Such boulders did not crumble or break down too quickly. This was important for the safety of the entire structure. They served as a reliable foundation and protection for the wooden elements of the floor. Wood was highly flammable, and without stones, the house could burn down in a matter of minutes. The stone base absorbed all the heat. It separated the flames from the living space. Flat stones were placed on top of the base for convenient placement of dishes. They were carefully fitted together so that the surface was even. This made the hearth more practical. Several dishes could be cooked on such stones at once. Water could be heated on them without contact with the flame. This saved firewood and avoided excessive smoke. The water heated slowly and evenly. This method was especially convenient during the cold season. The length of the central hearth could reach 5 meters or more. These were truly large structures inside the house. Such a hearth occupied a significant part of the hall. Its size emphasized the importance of fire in people's lives. This allowed a large number of people in the hall to warm themselves at the same time. Family and guests gathered around the fire. Here they discussed business, told stories, and relaxed. The hearth served as both a source of heat and a place for socializing. Along the stone edges there were recesses for storing burning charcoal. These recesses were always at hand. Charcoal retained heat much longer than an open flame. It was treasured as a valuable resource. They were used to quickly light torches or small braziers. This saved time and energy. There was no need to light a fire from scratch every time. Hot coals allowed people to act quickly. The stones around the fire became the most popular places in the whole house. It was the warmest place. People sat closer to the fire, especially in winter. This space was always occupied. People spent almost all their free time here. They repaired tools and cooked food by the fire. They also taught children and received guests here. The hearth united all family members. Over time, even the strongest stones cracked from the intense heat. Constant temperature changes destroyed the structure of the stone. Cracks appeared gradually. This was a natural process. Archaeologists find mountains of broken boulders when excavating building foundations. Such finds are very common. They show how long the hearth was used. The stones literally wore out from service. This directly indicates the very high intensity of domestic fire use. The hearth burned almost constantly. Without it, it was impossible to survive in the harsh climate. Fire was vital. The stones in the hearth had to be regularly replaced with new and intact ones. This required strength and time. The old stones were removed and replaced with new ones. In this way, the hearth was constantly renewed. Each new boulder was brought from the seashore or high mountains. The stone was not always close to the house. It was delivered by hand or with simple tools. It was hard work. Experienced craftsmen chose only the strongest and most durable rocks. They knew the properties of different stones well. A mistake could cost the safety of the whole house. Knowledge was passed down from generation to generation. The hearth was constantly being added to and slightly improved during its long service life. People improved it based on experience. They changed some things and added others. It was never completely finished. It was the living and constantly changing center of any northern dwelling. The hearth reflected the history of the family. Its appearance changed along with the house and the people. It always remained the heart of the home. The summer and winter modes of using fire in the house differed significantly. In summer, the fire was kept to a minimum, only as much as was absolutely necessary. It was only needed for cooking once a day. The doors of the house were kept open in warm, clear weather. This helped to quickly ventilate the hall and remove the smell of soot. In winter, however, the hearth turned into a roaring and very powerful beast. It was fed with dry firewood around the clock, without the slightest interruption or pause. All the cracks in the walls were tightly plugged with moss and wool. The house turned into an airtight capsule, retaining all the precious heat. The activity of the people inside at this time almost completely stopped. The Vikings tried to move as little as possible to conserve their internal energy. Winter was a time of long waiting and quiet domestic work. The winter diet consisted of the most caloric and very fatty dishes. They required very long heat treatment over a low fire. Lard and thick porridge constantly simmered in large cast-iron cauldrons. The hearth provided people with the energy necessary for their own survival. In the spring, a large and solemn general cleaning was always carried out in the house. All the dirt that had accumulated over the long winter was cleaned out of the hearth. It was an important symbolic act of purification and the beginning of a new life. The spring fire was always lit with special songs and prayers. After cleaning, the hearth often underwent minor or even major repairs. The clay coating was renewed and old stones that had cracked from the heat were replaced. People carefully prepared their homes for the new annual cycle. The hearth was once again clean and fully ready for use. In the fall, firewood supplies were always checked with particular care and attention. Damp wood could cause illness or cold. Every man knew exactly how many logs were needed for the winter. The hearth demanded sacrifices in the form of constant, hard physical labor. During the harvest season, fire was actively used to dry grain. It was laid out on special racks high above the flames of the fire. This prevented mold and reliably preserved all supplies. The hearth was the peasant's main helper in the battle for the harvest. Even on the coldest days, fire gave people comfort. The warm light of the hearth against the backdrop of the icy patterns on the doors was soothing. The Vikings valued these rare moments of peace after their arduous journeys. The hearth was their most faithful friend in battle. The changing seasons dictated their own harsh rules for dealing with the element of fire. People unquestioningly obeyed this rhythm for many hundreds of years. The experience of their ancestors helped them survive where others perished. The seasonal cycle of the hearth was the pulse of the entire great Scandinavian civilization. Seats by the warm hearth were always allocated in strict and indisputable accordance with established traditions. The most honorable and brightest seats were taken by the chieftain with his family and closest relatives. They were located in the very center of the hall, where the heat was even, gentle, and truly comfortable. Here there were always tall carved chairs and benches decorated with symbols of the clan, which clearly emphasized the absolute power and high status of the people sitting on them. Slaves and servants, on the other hand, were located at the very edges of the room, closer to the doors and drafts. They were left with only the remnants of heat and the most smoky, uncomfortable areas of the hall. There, the air was heavy, and the fire seemed distant and cold. This hierarchy was obvious to everyone and clearly demonstrated the structure of the complex and rigid Viking society. Access to the fire was a major privilege, a reward for position and loyal service. Guests in the house were given seats strictly in accordance with their nobility, reputation, and personal merits. Seating a visitor close to the flames meant showing him special respect and recognition. The laws of hospitality required sharing warmth even with complete strangers if they came in peace. The hearth served as a kind of measure of the generosity, honor, and nobility of the host of the house. It was around the fire that the most important court proceedings and public gatherings took place. It was believed that a person was simply incapable of lying while looking into a living flame. Fire acted as an impartial judge and silent witness to oaths taken before the entire community. The hearth brought people together, creating a space for frank and extremely honest dialogue. The fates of future military campaigns and raids were decided at a long table by the fire. Warriors swore on their weapons, illuminated by the glare of the sacred fire. The energy of the flames seemed to be transmitted to the people, instilling in them courage, fury, and confidence in victory. The hearth was not just a source of heat, but an ideological center that shaped the spirit and will of the entire nation. Women wielded their own special and unspoken power in the space around the cauldron. The mistress of the house decided who was worthy of the best portion of the stew and who would get the most satisfying piece of meat. She was the true guardian of the fire, whose decisions determined the well-being of the entire family. Men deeply respected this quiet but absolute power of women over the hearth and food. Children sat on the earthen floor or on skins at the feet of their relatives. They silently absorbed traditions, watching the adults and looking at the sparks dancing in the darkness. The hearth became their first school and their first knowledge of the world. Social roles and order were learned here in a natural and very visual way. During feasts, the places by the fire turned into a real stage. Singers and skalds stood in the beams of light, telling of the exploits of the gods and heroes of the past. The flames accompanied their words with their rhythmic and quiet crackling. The clear hierarchy by the fire created a sense of order, stability, and harmony within the home. Even after the death of a chieftain, his place by the hearth could remain empty for a long time. This served as a sign of mourning and deep respect for the departed leader. The hearth remembered absolutely everyone who had ever warmed themselves by it, eaten, and sworn oaths. The history of the clan was literally recorded in the soot, ashes, and charred beams of the fire. The distribution of heat was a matter of life and death in the harsh northern world. The strong protected the fire, and the fire, in turn, protected the entire community from cold and death. The social order around the fire ensured the survival of the strongest clan. The hearth was a mirror that reflected the entire hierarchy, power, and fate of the people. Viking technology laid the foundation for the development of European stove making. The ability to combine fire with stone has been used in architecture for centuries. Modern fireplaces owe much of their design to those hearths. Scandinavian craftsmen passed on their secrets through many generations. This knowledge did not disappear with the Viking era. It was gradually reworked and adapted to new conditions. Many principles survived the Middle Ages and reached the modern era. simple solutions proved to be the most enduring. Today we study this experience thanks to the work of many archaeologists. Reconstructions of longhouses help us understand the logic of the ancients. This knowledge is important for understanding the history of human adaptation. The Vikings proved that even in the desert, it is possible to live. Research shows how accurately Northerners understood their environment. They knew how to use limited resources without unnecessary waste. Archaeology gives us the opportunity to see this in practice. Every hearth found tells its own story. Their approach to everyday life was as practical and thoughtful as possible. Every detail of the hearth had a clear, functional purpose. The hearth was a symbol of the resilience and ingenuity of the entire northern people. This flame forged a fearless character. Fire united the family and the community. Around it, decisions were made and knowledge was passed on. It was a place for conversation and silence. It was here that a sense of home was formed. The Viking home was an organism in which fire replaced the hearth. As long as the fire burned, history continued and legends were born. This flame lit the way for Northerners through many difficult centuries. It left a bright mark on the history of an entire civilization. When the fire went out, the house seemed to lose its life. Therefore, the hearth was never left unattended. Its condition reflected the condition of the entire family. It was a connection between people and time. We can learn from these people in terms of economics. The Vikings used the energy of wood to its maximum, full potential. Not a single spark or degree of heat was wasted. This is an example of the ideal coexistence of humans with the environment. This approach reduced dependence on unnecessary resources. It allowed them to survive where others could not. Economy was not a choice, but a necessity. It was what made life sustainable. Today's technologies seem perfect and very reliable to us. But the experience of the Vikings reminds us of the importance of all basic knowledge. The ability to start a fire and keep it going is a skill. The ancient hearth teaches us to appreciate simple things. Without these skills, any complex systems lose their meaning. History shows that the foundation is always more important than the superstructure. The Vikings knew this from experience. Their homes were proof of this principle. The legacy of the Northerners lives on in our traditions of gathering around the fire. We still feel an inexplicable comfort when we are near it. This is a deep genetic memory of the times of hauls and expeditions. The hearth remains a symbol of home, warmth, and safety. Even today, people are drawn to a living flame. It calms and unites. This effect has not disappeared over thousands of years. It is embedded in the very experience of survival. Archaeologists continue to find new details about ancient heating systems. Each discovery reveals new facets of the builder's talent. The history of the hearth is the history of man's struggle for rights. We continue this research, uncovering forgotten pages. With each discovery, the picture becomes clearer. We better understand how engineering thought was born. The hearth ceases to be just a bonfire. It becomes the key to understanding an entire era. We hope you found this immersion into the atmosphere of an ancient Scandinavian home informative. The Vikings left us not only sagas about battles, they bequeathed to us the art of turning cold into comfort. This legacy is far more valuable than gold and conquered lands. The hearth is an eternal symbol of life that burns.
Father, we thank you for
May the example of these masters inspire us to create homes. The history of the Vikings reminds us that light always triumphs over darkness. The hearth was and remains the heart of any dwelling. What other aspects of Viking life would you like to see in our future videos? Write your ideas in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes.